So we should probably talk about the one thing we're avoiding, and that is whenever I do a means problem, I need to be able to find my degrees of freedom. So the question is, when I deal with two means, what exactly is degrees of freedom? It's important to remember that for a one mean problem, my degrees of freedom is n minus 1. And so it would seem like if I was just doing two means, then maybe I could go ahead and do n minus 2 or something. Turns out the formula is not nearly that straightforward. So first thing I need to do is go ahead and give it to you. My degrees of freedom when I'm dealing with two samples is actually going to be a little bit convoluted. It starts by taking s1 squared over n1 and adding it to s2 squared over n2. I then take this and I square it all. After I'm done with that, I go ahead and I divide it by something. In fact, I divide it by s1 squared divided by n1 quantity squared divided by n1 minus 1. And I go ahead and I add it to the same thing for my other samples. S2 squared over n2 quantity squared all over n2 minus 1. Now, first question, yeah, you actually have to use it. Second question, well, is there an easier formula for it? And the answer is yes, but only if certain things line up. I've made a separate video about that in case you're kind of curious about when it simplifies. Now let's talk about the way we're going to plug in things for this. And what we'll do is in the very beginning to calculate it, we'll go ahead and we will list. We should already have this done, right? Hypothesis test first step, confidence interval first step as well. We'll go ahead and list S1, S2, N1, and N2. After we list this stuff, the next thing we'll do in order to go ahead and plug this into our formula is we'll notice that we have a couple things that keep showing up. That is, this right here also shows up here on the bottom. So what we'll go through about doing is finding what S1 squared over N1 is and what S2 squared over N2 is. After we have this, it's a matter of just taking that value. Let's call this one green, and plugging it in here and here. If we call the other one blue, we'll plug in there and there. So in reality, once we find those two values, the calculation itself isn't all that awful. We'll go ahead and do an example of it in the next video.